So let's start with cloning PaperRockScissors. It is example similar to tip calculator, but it is somewhat different because it has imitation of two screens. It is not doing screens with navigation. It is using brute force approach, and it's not my dumb idea. It is, I borrowed this idea from some Google Labs. Because navigation, how to make navigation work, it is not such a trivial topic. So textbook is postponing it, and Google also postponed this topic to future. So original previous examples from Google do not have navigation, are implemented using navigation framework. They imitated it by brute force. And this example is using imitation, and we'll explain that one. And obviously, if it is coming from Google, it's probably not such a huge deal to do it this way. It definitely works for a simpler app, and if you have multiple screens, you need to, it is better to do it with navigation. This has only two, and you will see, so it's not a big deal. When we cover navigation, it will be covered like in 2 weeks from now. I will create a branch of this same program with navigation. So now it is kind of temporary, temporary state. So let's go there and clone it, PaperRockScissors2. Why it is 2? Because one, I also have one. I have a version with views. It is older GUI. So let's clone this thing. So I go code and copy. And first thing to explain, I will do that. I will close dog example. And I will close, for now, a restaurant example. So after I explain PaperRockScissors, we'll have a break. And after this, I will explain restaurant example. This is not long to explain. So I will stop this, cancel, stop it from running. And exit. And I'll close Google App. And here it is, Android Studio, and get from version control. I will clone it in this folder. So again, when you clone any project, make sure it is creating folder for it, because you don't want to clone into folders that already have some project. It will mix files and it will never work right. I'm pretty sure I don't have this in this folder. I have it in another folder. So I clone it and trust project. It's building. So please do it with me so you know how to, you have it as well. When it says project upgrade recommended, be absolutely very, very careful about it. Because what it suggests automatically quite often break project. Do this after you commit it and you have free time to fix it. Otherwise, just roll back commit. Okay. This is breaking projects like, I would say like 50% chance. So don't do it on your assignment when you work on it. So if you create a project for assignment, you work on it, it wants to upgrade, this way, ignore it. Okay? Make sure everything is committed, and if you have time left, you want to play with it, upgrade it, but make sure it's committed before so you can roll back if it's broken. Okay? So this is, I keep in mind, but I will do it later, but not now. Okay? By the way, Android Studio is upgraded now. So please do this upgrade at home. they released new patch. It probably bug fixes. When we installed this Android Studio a week ago, 2 weeks ago, right, week 2, it was patch 1, now it is patch 2. How to upgrade Android Studio? You can try this, check for updates, and it will, in my case, it says latest, but in your case, it will say not, and it will be optioned to update. But it is safer to do it when you close project and there is a, okay, I will close this. Okay, close project, I will reopen it. It is safer. So updating at the time when you don't have a project open, it's safer because it won't break your project. You click this and click check for updates. And if when it says new available, it will appear here and you will click yes, update. And again, do it after your assignment is done, or do not do it while you're working on assignment. So since I already cloned it, I will reopen it here. It is this one. No, not this one. Where it is? PaperRockScissors, this one. PaperRockScissors, this one, what I cloned it. And this is again. So let me run it. So I will explain what it is. It's not a pretty app. So I need to work on it to make it pretty. But it does what it's supposed to. It's not replacing images. It's extra work. I postpone it. It is just text and radio buttons. It would be cool to have like images replacing like you and it took like 3 hours yesterday to make it from scratch. It is done from scratch. So I decided that 3 hours is not enough for me. I will postpone the rest. It imitates two screens, and this is input screen. And you make selection, and you click play, and computer made selection, and it is it's random. Paper, use scissors, and you're the winner. And there is button replay. It remembers your state because it is saved in view model. It is unintended behavior, but why not? It remembers your previous choice. You can change it and click again. You are winner again, so let's play again, rock, rock. So it is random. If we rotate the screen, it will remember selection, and it will remember this if we rotate it on the screen. How it is achieved? It is because state is stored in view model, and view model survives rotation. So let's talk about it. First, I want to explain business logic of it. It was part of exercise of write it command line. It was from when we learned Kotlin, but I never posted solution. But okay, this is solution. You can add console. You can copy paste it into console project and do it. So I separated this into model. So I use it enumeration type to make its logic, I would say, easier to follow. Similarly to enumeration type in calculator example. So I made the enumeration for enumeration class choice, PaperRockScissors. I'm using this simplest possible way. Enumeration type can be quite complex. We can add constructors to it. We can add even methods. So it's in this case, you can override toString method. In this case, it is just constants, and they number it automatically 0, 1, 2. And this is good enough. They number it automatically 0, 1, 2, but you never have to refer to those indices unless you really need to. You can use words instead of that, instead of numbers. So this is convenient. I also defined game result, also for convenience logic. user wins, computer wins, or replay when it is even, like the same choice. And so again, this is used in business to define a logic more transparent. Next, I abstracted a business logic using an interface. An interface is a contract of something that we want or need, right? So if this part is implemented, it means my business logic is fine, right? So what do we need to make this program work? We need to have some function that returns random choice. And choice is enumeration type, PaperRockScissors2. This is for computer to make decision. Right? So if we have some functions that get random choice giving enumeration type PaperRockScissors2, yeah, it's useful. Another thing, we need additional function that takes user choice, takes computer choice, and returns game result, enumeration type, which is, says computer wins, user wins, or replay, right? So if we implement this service, we're good, right? Well, we can use it in GUI. So I use this enumeration, I use this interface to define what I want. And this also can be used to separate layers of the program quite efficiently. If we use dependency injection, it will be 100% separation. But we are not using dependency injection in this case, so it is not perfect. And I will show why it is not perfect. So it is quite reasonable separation, but it's not ideal. We will learn dependency injection later in the course. The other teacher, Jagisha, will explain it to you because it is advanced and it will be after midterm. Okay. Today I will do brute force, but for the future it is good to use interface. So interface is here. Now let's implement it somehow. So I implemented this game service here. So in order to make random decision, I need random number generation somehow. So I'm using class random that comes with Kotlin. Kotlin random random. And it is private object, yeah, because it is used internally, so no need to access it from outside. But it could be passed from outside. So we can create service by passing this outside because this is constructor, right? So this is constructor, primary constructor. But it is less convenient for me to use primary constructor because I need to have a random object already created, right? To pass it. So I define its additional constructor that doesn't require parameters. But Kotlin restriction, if you create additional constructor, it must call primary constructor. It is solid, you cannot. Otherwise, it won't compile. So I'm calling primary constructor this with default random number generator. So in order to create this object, I don't need to provide it. I'll just use empty parentheses. And this constructor with empty parentheses will call constructor with this default value, right? And another choice, I could assign it as default. It's another choice. Okay. So another choice, I could do it as default parameter. This way, I don't have to create extra constructor. So it's up to you, essentially. Okay. Yeah, I could set it as default parameter. So what is this one? Column game service. This means implementing game service interface, right? It means I need to implement all functions declared in the interface. So this is easier, so let's start with this one. Get random choice function returning choice. Choice, it's enumeration type, and it has a method, values. this choice.values is returning array that contains elements of the choices. So this is array. And if you this array has a method dot random. If you do not provide random number generator, it will be just random out of this, out of the array, and it will work. So technically, you don't need to mess with this. But giving random number generator as explicit parameter makes this class testable, reproducible way. So I'm adding extra option to test it reproducible way. If you rely on some random number generator under the hood, you cannot really test per class, or you cannot write tests that are reproducible. Because this can be created, this class, when this is not default, you can replace default. You can make tests reproducible. So it is a separate topic to be discussed separately at the testing point, okay? But again, you don't need to deal with it. You can use empty parentheses. It will use something under the hood. Okay. Questions? So this will give me random choice. Next. This is more interesting because we need to decide PaperRockScissors. Who is the winner? So this function is returning game result based on user choice and computer choice. And I'm using when. When in Kotlin is returning result. So you can assign it to a variable, you can assign it to a function. Which will it return? So when user choice, it is this one. It will return result of this when. And what this when return? When user choice is paper, computer choice is paper, result is replay. When user choice is paper, computer choice is rock, result is user is winning. Okay? So this is the logic. So this when is returning result, and result is returning by this enclosed when. What is behind arrow, these pieces, can be enclosed in curly braces if you want to have more than one line of code. If in this case, return result will be last statement. Okay? So last what is inside of curly braces. So when is quite functional, you can have fancy code inside, not just one line. Questions? So this is how it is making decision who is the winner, like user choice, if it is a rock, so user choice if it is rock, and when compute, so it will be result of this one, and when computer choice is scissors, game result is user wins. So it was kind of a nice exercise with when. So this is a decision-making part. Next. So business logic is kind of explained. Let's talk about structure of it. This program contains two screens. They're kind of imitation, but they're actual screens, right? So I created package for, call it screens. So we have input screen, output screen, and this is specific to imitation. It is not, this thing won't exist if we have a navigation system. This is another enumeration type that I use internally to assign to the variable which screen I want to show, input or output. All right? It is which screen is shown. Okay? So it is part of the state variable. Right? So this program is not using navigation, it is using state to tell the system which screen to show. How does it work? So in my main activity, I separated all those composable functions inside of PaperRockScissors app. So if we open examples from Google, most of the examples written such way, so it's not something new. In example called like calculator, this was called calculator screen, and it was just below. Now I have two other screens, so I had app and another screen. So I moved this into separate file. How I moved it? First, I separated E as extra function, and we did it as the previous lesson. Highlight it, extract function, and outside you select this file. Another option, I right-clicked it and I selected move, and it gave me option where to move, and I typed file name. So you don't have to create file yourself. You do refactor move, right-click function, refactor move, and select file, type file name. It suggests usually it is function name, which is good, and click move, and it will move it. So I have PaperRockScissors app here. What is inside? By the way, preview is no longer inside of main activity, right? Because it has two screens. It's not clear what to preview. I need to preview them separately. So previews are moved to screens files. So now I'm going to PaperRockScissors app. This also doesn't have preview. Because previews make sense at screen level, not at entire app level. So what do I have here? PaperRockScissors theme as before, because I extracted this as a function. Surface was inside of it. It is background surface to make it white. And I have a view model. Right? How it works? I created view model class. Here it is, main view model class. That will contain state variable, and it will be observable state. So it will be inside of observable box. And this function is giving you that object. If that object doesn't exist, it will create a new one. If it does exist, it will find one where it is. The key point of main view model, it will survive rotation of the screen. So if I store state variables inside of view model, they will survive rotation. So this is one of the major features of view model that I will use right now. Okay. So this is giving me that object that will survive rotation. All right. Next, my view model contains UI state inside of observable box. So you see, game UI state. And I'm delegating setter and getter from this object to from this variable. It's not object, it's from this variable to object inside of to the enclosing object of UI state. So this is what this by means. Delegate setters and getters for this variable to setters and getters of that box. So what is inside of view model? I have a mutable state that is enclosing game UI state. So what is mutable state? It's a wrapper around an object that makes this object observable. So it's a container, observable container. When content is changing, it tells the function that is referring to it, yeah, it needs to update, so the system will call this function again. So this is mutable state of game UI state. So let's quickly jump into game UI state to see what is there. And so we know what we're talking about. Game UI state. Since it is imitation, not navigation, I have which screen is shown, it is part of the data. So what is this? I just provided default variable. So it is constructor. So it's a data class that contains empty parentheses because there is nothing else. There is no additional constructor, no functions. So in Kotlin, we can omit empty parentheses. So this is gone. So it's a data class. So when we call constructor without parameters, it will use these defaults. So I provided default values for constructor. So default for screen is input, default user choice is ROG, default computer choice is ROG, default game result is replay. So if I call constructor, it will be consistent thing, right? So idea of having UI state is to maintain consistency in one place. So it starts with something consistent, and each time when I change UI state in my code, I make sure it stays consistent. So there is no extra randomness that can come from nowhere, right? So this is my UI state, and each time I change it in view model, and I make sure that it stays consistent. So Google recommends to have as least UI states as possible, so I'm using one. Okay. So although it starts from input, this is already consistent together. All right. So let's go back. I'm going back to main view model. In main view model, I create this mutable state of game UI state by calling function that is creating it, mutable state of, and it must be initialized to something. So I call default constructor. And you already saw without parameters, it creates consistent state, including show input first, right? Screen, input first, input screen. But this is private. So it's not visible outside. What is visible? Visible is not variable with underscore, but variable without underscore, which is similar type, but it's not mutable. This is mutable state, but this is not mutable state. Why do we, and it is referring to the same variable, so it is typecast. Why do we refer to the same thing two times, right? The reason is that state should not be changeable outside of your model, because the logic prescribed by Google, GUI is showing state. GUI is not changing state directly. Okay? If user does something like a click, whatever, on the click, GUI is calling method of view model. So this should be for business logic, and this is all this is business logic. There is no UI state. There is no specific UI state except business logic UI state in this program. So this is not changeable, and it is exactly this variable is exposed outside in not changeable way. Why can I assign variable of one type to variable of another type? The reason is that mutable state is inheriting from state. You can always assign a child class to parent class. So this is parent class, this is child class. So again, this variable stores reference to the same object. It's different variable, but it's storing reference to the same object. So this is reference. So this is what is exposed. Going back to PaperRockScissors app, here it is. What is by? By is delegating setters and getters to this, no. For val, it delegates only getter, right? Because this is not changeable. For val, it delegates only getter. So it delegated getter to UI state, to which? To the observable box, this one. So now I have observable variable inside of the function. Each time when content of the box is changing, it will signal system to call this function again, to refresh the stuff. All right? Now, going back to this. So this is my UI state. Remember, UI state.screen, it could be input or output. So this is part of the state. If it is input, I'm supposed to show input screen. If it is output state, I'm showing output screen. So it is brute force. So I'm calling composable function input screen if screen, if UI state screen is screen input. So it's not navigation, it is just a flip of calling different function. All right? So when state is changing, this function is called again, and this could be different. And this could, if this could be different, it will be the one which is matching the state. So it will recompose to the right one. Okay. So this UI state variable is used as a trigger. When it is changing, system will call this function and recompose it again. Questions? So now let's talk about input state. So since it is starting point, our input state is taking 3 arguments. Remember calculator. We need to store user choice somewhere. And it is stored inside of UI state. So it is passed to input screen from UI state. Okay, let's go back to UI state again. You see, user choice, computer choice result. So it is screen, user choice, computer choice result. All right. So going back to PaperRockScissors app. So user choice is passed from UI state. Now, when user clicks on some radio button, it needs to update UI state. Who is updating this view model? Right? Because this system cannot update it. It's val. It's not changeable. So view model is updating. View model dot update UI state to the new state. It is what user clicked. Is a PaperRockScissors. I will show in guts of it. It is essentially it is choice. It is new choice. What it means is default argument. So we could use this instead of it. We could do this. Choice. Let me fold it. And choice here. Okay. It is just longer way of doing it. So it is this argument. Okay. So it is choice. Next, we need to do something when we click play button. So we call view model on play. And view model will replace state, obviously, logically, right? So before we dive into input screen, let's see what is view model logic for on user choice change and on play. All right. So is it clear at this moment what is going on? So now let's dive into view model and see how it is changing, updating UI choice, and on play. Okay. So let's go to view model. Update user choice. Since UI state is not mutable, this is as Google prescribes, shouldn't be mutable. The only way to change this object is to create a new one by copying and inserting this into the container. So this is what I do. This is current UI state. It is game UI state dot value. Dot value because this is container. In order to get what is inside, it is dot value. So UI state, it is game UI state dot value. So this is current state. I need to create new one. So I call UI state dot copy, and copy for data class, it's defined for data class. It copies all content, but what you provide as argument, it will be replaced. So I'm replacing choice inside of the container with this parameter. So this is new UI state. And I put it into dot value of mutable reference. I cannot put it into dot value of this because it is state, it's not mutable. This is mutable. So on update user choice, view model is creating new UI state by copying it and inserting this into observable container. All right. And what happens on play when user clicks on play button? So again, I'm using UI state, it's here. It's current UI state. Then I'm making decision for the computer. Remember, game, service, get random choice. It's giving random choice. Where's this service? It's just private variable here. You see, private val, I call implementation constructor. You cannot call constructor of interface, right? So I had to call, this is interface, but this is constructor. So it is kind of separation of business logic, but not 100% separation because you refer to implementation. This issue is addressed with using dependency injection. It is simple here because my service doesn't have dependencies, doesn't have network connection or anything like that. If it has dependencies, it will be more complicated. So it couldn't be that simple. So it is just private variable. So game service, get random choice, this is computer choice. Now I'm creating new state. Again, by copying, right? A UI state copy, I'm replacing computer choice with my random decision, right? I'm finding out, replacing game result by calling game service get game result. And when I call get game result, I'm using user choice stored in UI state and computer choice that I just made random decision. And I'm replacing screen to screen output. So it will flip the screen. Right? So this will be new UI state and it goes into box. So it will detect the change because this box is observable, and it flips screen and displays new data from UI state. Okay. Since we're in this file, this is easier to explain. It is on replay. On replay is called from output screen to flip it back screen. So what happens on replay? Again, this is current state. The only thing I need to do is to go back, because on replay you just go to input screen. So again, I'm copying UI state, and I'm replacing screen to screen input now. and this is new state, goes into the observable box, and this assignment is observed, since it's observed, is triggering update of the screen. Right? What triggers update of the screen? It is, this is triggering update of the screen. Okay. Questions? So let's see the magic inside of input screen and output screen. Okay. Now I just need to have a GUI. So I separated it in input screen here. And now I want to have some preview, right? Because you work on GUI, you want to see what is going on. So besides having input screen, I also create a function, call it input screen preview. Since that function has input screen has some parameters, you cannot really preview it unless you give some parameters to it, right? So I call this function with some fake parameters like choice, do not do anything when user tries to change the screen, and do not do anything when you click on play button. It is just to see screen without functionality. I put it inside of similar wrapper. Remember, it needs to have a background in order to see, so it will show on the same background. All right? So this is the idea. Previews are not necessary for entire app, could be per screen or even per some, say, some are composable, just separated into different windows. You can have more than one preview per file. If you want, they will be just one after another scrollable. So now it is showing preview of my, you can resize it. Due to this. So now we can call this function. It is handy if function has parameters. You need to provide something. Otherwise, it cannot decide what to show, right? So what do I have here? This is obviously copy-paste from a calculator example. So I have a column. Right? At the top, oh no, it is wrong place. It is user choice input. Right? So I need to start from the top, input screen. I have a column. I made it scrollable. And it is, order is important. Order is from outside to inside. So if you switch these two, window will be scrollable within the frame of 32 dp around. I want frame to be scrolled as well. Right? So this gap disappears at the top when you scroll. So I made it scrollable, and this is the frame, so it doesn't start from the edge. Then vertical alignment. Arrange it by 32 dp. It is the gap between elements on the screen. So this is together, it's a separate column. So this gap does not apply to this piece. And it is 32 dp, this, and this. Okay. Center horizontally, it arrange this stuff centered horizontally. Right? Next, I have a text field, and function called user choice. This is a function called user choice input. So this text, font size, color resource. So this is color to make this. Right? When you do assignment, you will learn how to do this nicer, because it will explain styles. It will explain how to use styles from material design. You customize material design, you use styles from that. So after you do assignment, I will replace this thing, and it will be nicer. So another text, this different. user choice input, it is this box, and button, this button. A button has a parameter on click, and on click it is on play function passed here. And it is lambda function that is calling on play inside of your model. You saw it, right? Did you? Okay, let me show where it is. It is inside of here. You see, on play is passed to output screen, and it is called on replay in view model. Okay. Oh no, sorry. On play in view model. This is output on play. So going back to input screen, here it is. Button calling on play, and it is this parameter. What is inside of button? It is left to right. So row scope. So it is row in a button. So you set icon if you want. It's optional. Text, you can pile stuff, right? You can have a longer thing. In this case, I have just icon and text. You can customize text, you can customize icon. So I pick it icon checkmark. Okay. In this part, it is user choice. Our logic inside of this user choice is very similar to logic in calculator, because it was choice of tip, and this is choice PaperRock of scissors. So I'm passing two parameters on user choice, where it is stored, and lambda function to be called when I click on something. I try to change. So this is user choice input. User choice input, here it is, lambda function. It is new choice given as a parameter to lambda function that will eventually call function of view model. So we have a column. It is this column. That contain 3 rows. Right? Every row has center vertically. So these two pieces are like axially symmetric. So it is centered vertically. If this is missed, you already saw before when we experimented with a calculator, it will be misaligned. It doesn't look pretty. It is to align radio button with the text next to it. Okay. So radio button. It should be selected when user choice is equal to choice paper, logically, right? So when this is true, this is selected. The same as here. Should be selected when user choice is equal to choice rock. Okay. When we click on this radio button, we call on change and passing paper, logically. When we click on it, we pass new choice paper. Similarly, this one. When we click on second one, we pass choice rock upstairs. Okay. So this is how user input works here. Questions? So let's go to output, user output screen. Output screen. In the same idea, I have a preview, because when I was working on it, I needed to have something on the screen so I know what is going on. Right? And it is calling output screen function with some fake parameters, choice rock, replay, because I need to show something. And on replay, it's not calling anything here, because it's preview. I also wrap it into theme and with surface, so it is background white, and applying the same theme. I would say, like, I created environment, the same environment as this function is called inside of the app. this function, I'll put screen is called in that. So I can preview it as it's supposed to be. So I need to, when I display this stuff, I need to convert choice as an enumeration type to string. So I'm using when. Remember already we learned that when is returning value. In this case, it will return string. When you have something with green background, it's actually string resource. You click it, you see string resource. So when choice is paper, it is picking string resource from string file. So where is the string file? It is strings in values, strings.xml. So it is picking one of those, like paper, this paper. Right. So let's go back to output screen. So it is picking from here. Why do we have string resource? In order to make application translatable between languages. So here it is. For choice paper, it is this. For rock, it is rock, and scissors, and scissors. So it is converting to choice. Next, I need to have some sentences like you won or computer won, depending on enumeration type of the solution. So of result. Right? So the same. Converting game result to string. So it is displayed here. So those pieces are in string resource. And this is function that's supposed to be called in composable context. Although this function is not displaying anything on the screen directly, it is calling function that is valid only inside of composable. So for this reason, I had to add composable on top. So this is conversion things, and let's see how it is displayed. Now I didn't separate this into different functions. It is just another column with smaller gap in between. So I have a column, also scrollable, with padding, spaced by 32, 32, 32, 32, center horizontally. So this box is centered horizontally, but inside of the box it is not centered horizontally. So this is what it is. And this box is separate column inside. So I have a text, another text, then this box is column. That contains two rows. First row, it is word computer from string resource. And choice to string, computer choice converted to string. You already saw choice to string at the bottom function. That converting in computer choice, it's parameter given to this. You see computer choice. Computer choice converted to string. Right? And changing color to purple. And second row, similarly for second one. Right? Word U, pick it from string resource. And choice to string, it is user choice variable. A user choice variable converted to string. User choice variable converted to string. And last piece, not last piece is button. This piece, by the way, the gap is different here. It's 8dp, this is what 8dp. And horizontal alignment start. Start means left. In the languages, starting from left to right. So default is English here. So start is left, end is right. So this is why this is aligned to the left. Okay. And last, it's a button. I check icon arrow back. Icons fill it arrow back. Content description null. because it already has text. No, we don't need description. And there is also text, string resource, picking replay, word replay from string resource. Font size 20. Okay. And this button is calling on replay. And on replay, it's lambda function given as a parameter, this, to output screen. And what is this function given as a parameter? It is this, on replay. It is calling on replay from view model. And you saw what on replay is doing. It is replacing UI state with new UI state, where screen is just replaced with output screen like this. Questions? No. If no questions, let's have a break.